Hi everyone, welcome back to Java 1 for all. Continuing the repository, now we are going to delete a producer. Again, checking, we have Docker. I'm going to start the MySQL server, Docker compose up. And there is something I think that you probably noticed. When we are logging, the name of the package is quite big. So for example, if I just log here log.info something, you will notice that we have the entire package name. So if you want to change this in the log4j, this is the precision. So if you put 2, you are going to get, by executing Shift F10 here, only the class and the previous package from that entire package name. But at least my personal preference is something like this. Shift F10, you will get the first letter of each one of the packages and then the class name. So if you want to have like the first 3 letters, just change here to 3 and then you will get the 3 letters. But for me, only 1 is more than enough because usually the class names, they are unique. At least I try my best to have them unique. Cool. So continuing, now we are going to do the following. We are going to check how our database looks like because we were kind of messing up in the previous video. So just select, right click here in the producer, and well, we have 2 NHK and 2 Studio Dean. Now we are going to work on the delete, but before we actually work on the delete, we are going to do one change, because right now we are technically, if you consider this connection factory test, the view, something that the customer is going to have interaction, you are accessing directly the repository. And there is a design pattern called MVC, Model View Controller, where you split the responsibilities. So what we are going to do here is add one layer in between the repository and the test to kind of handle the things between the repository and the view. It can act like what we call controller, but in this case, yeah, it will be called service. So just create a package called service, and then you create here another class and call producer service. Now the producer service will basically do the same thing that we are doing in the repository. We will have only one call, public static void. I think we call save in the repository. Yeah, save asking for producer. And then here we call repository, producer repository dot save, passing this producer. And now in my connection factory, I will, instead of call the repository, I will call the producer service. So you may look at this and say, well, nothing changed, but trust me, once you start having business logic, you are going to add your business logic here, not at your repository. And here you can clearly see kind of the model view controller. So you kind of have the view, and then you have the controller, the service handling the business logic, and you have this as a layer in between this and this. And the producer repository is kind of working directly with the domain that's representing our table. So we have a pretty professional structure used in several projects. So if you get familiar with this, your life from now on will be easier. Now let's move on to the producer repository. I would like to remove. So if you don't know how to create the delete, you just select any row. You click right here, delete selected rows, click apply. And I just want to copy this guy right here. Control C, cancel, and then revert. Go back to Java 1 for all. Here you just select and then press Control D to not lose the value you just copied. Delete, and then we are going to change the SQL here. So to delete, as you can see, is only the ID. If you need only the ID, you do not get the entire object. So try to keep the parameters that you are asking as simple as possible. In this case, we only need ID, right? So int ID. Cool. Here we change to ID. There are a couple more things we can do here. For example, let's improve the log message. for example, here we can say inserted producer, and then we move this one like to the end, and we add here the producer.get name, and here we add log.error, trying to insert producer, and then I can give the name of the producer. I will give producer.get name, and then I will pass here the throwable that the log will basically handle the stack trace for me. I can remove this one. Okay, now going back to our delete, I will just copy this log here and copy this error here, and I'm going to start here. So basically we need to change here to %d because this is an integer. Keep the same, keep the same, keep the same, and here deleted producer with ID and rows in the database. Affected rows in the database. And then here you just pass the ID. You are trying to delete producer. Okay, so looks like we have our delete. Now what we have to do is go to our service and add this delete. So just go to the producer service. You can copy this and then change to delete. We are going to ask for ID, and here we are going to delete passing the ID. But there is a chance that the ID is 0 or the ID is negative. So let's do this error handling right here. Actually, invalid value. I like to ask some questions because then if you have some errors and you see at the logs, it just gives you kind of a, hey, looks like I have to change this. Now let's test connection factory test. Let's comment this out, control / and then producer service dot delete. So what do I want to delete? I want to delete 3 and 5. I will delete 3 and 5. Control Shift F10. So delete the producer with ID 3, rows affected, and if I try to execute again, as you can see, no rows were affected in the database, but we didn't get any exception, which is good. Now if we go back to Workbench and then just press Ctrl Enter, as you can see, we have now only these 3 studios. By the way, if you insert a new studio, the ID will not go to 5. Since we had 5, it will probably start with 6. So it keeps increasing one by one because it's auto incremental. Cool, so now we have our delete. I think it's enough for one video. In the next one, let's work on the update. So see you in the next video. Bye.